Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have no offers accepted if you're not viewing. So be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class if you've not been watching my videos. I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another live stream on Moving Home with Charlie. I'm Charlie. A special welcome to all my new subscribers and followers. Quite a lot of you. Thank you very much. And a warm welcome back to everybody else, including those of you who've been following me for coming on for a year now, some of you. I find myself daunted by this evening's live stream. And at the risk of making you all want to switch off and go and do something else. It's not going to be a happy live stream. It's not going to be a much of a jokey one, because we've reached a point in the market where I feel like the general message I've been giving out needs to be revised, temporarily at least. I've got Alex Groundwater, also known as Housing Stig, waiting in the green room to come and join me in a minute. But I wanted to just start before he joins in with the following. And I'll come on to what's happened today that's made me feel this. It was a very last minute decision this evening, because we've got tomorrow evening's live stream with Anthony Codlin, the Economist, which I'm looking forward to very much, to discuss the wider picture. But what's changed? What's happened today? What's tipped me over the edge that's made me want to actually reconsider my buy now but don't overpay message, which is a big deal for me. Right? It's a really big deal for me to be reconsidering this for lots of reasons. I talk to a lot of people who in the moving industry, because I've been working in it for 20 something years. I talk to a lot of agents, I talk to a lot of mortgage brokers, and I talk to a lot of estate agency suppliers. Most of whom disagree with a lot of the stuff that I say, but I get a feel for what's really happening out there. And I want to start by saying this. Everybody has got either a mortgage to pay or rent to pay, bills to pay, families to feed, perhaps staff to pay if you're running a business. And there's no doubt that there is a creeping realization that whatever happens in the coming months in terms of changes to the economy, the effects of the last 12 months have yet to be fully felt and are going to continue getting worse for a number of reasons. So it is with great trepidation that I say what I'm going to be saying this evening, because I know that specifically and especially estate agents and mortgage brokers are likely to feel the effects of what changes I am anticipating in the moving market in the coming months very acutely. And for some of them, it will mean that they may not be able to stay on in that job or in that business. Jobs are going to be lost because transaction volumes are going to drop, in my view. They've already been widely reported to be 30% down on this time last year, whether it's mortgage approvals at Halifax saying that, HMRC confirming transaction volumes down 30% on the previous year. And 30% is already a big hit to, even taking into account that last year transaction volumes were high because of COVID and everything else. And okay, we've come down from very, very highs, but still a 30% drop from one year to the next is not something people tend to factor in and prepare for. And it hits businesses hard. There's a lot of animosity towards estate agents and actually to a level that surprises me, towards some mortgage brokers as well. And this is misplaced because neither estate agents or mortgage brokers are responsible for anything that happens in the housing market. They might make it a bit worse here or there, but overall, it's policy making at government level and Bank of England level and at the lenders that makes the biggest difference to what's happened in the housing market. Okay, agents and brokers are merely service providers for people who choose to use them. No one's forced to use any of them. No one's ripping anyone off in those industries. Yes, there's plenty of bad service, and yes, there's plenty of guff and downright dishonesty. But in worrying times, people will say what they need to meet their targets and get their bills paid. That is human nature, and that happens in any industry. And you cannot be surprised when salespeople say things that they want to say to try and help them get more business. Okay, of course, there's a line in the sand that you can't cross when actually you're telling outright lies to get business done. That's not okay. But just as fellow human beings, I think we should respect each other's need to make a living, pay the bills, keep a roof over our head and that kind of stuff. And that there are people starting to get very, very worried. I just want to recap quickly, because originally I was going to be talking about the Rightmove house price index, which I actually think is probably the single biggest contributing factor to overvaluing of everything. It's not the only factor, but I would say that the Rightmove house price index of asking prices and how misleading it is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, cause of overvaluing in property. That's led to a lot of people overpaying as well. But the simple reason why people who work in the industry tend to talk the market up is because if prices are going up, there's a sense of urgency on the part of buyers to buy before prices rise anymore, and a sense of urgency on the part of people who are upsizing to upsize before the upsizing gets more and more expensive with prices rising. Only downsizers don't need to hurry up in a rising market, but in a falling market, buyers can take their time. In a falling market, upsizers can take their time. Only downsizers need to hurry up. And that's actually what we've been seeing this year. We've definitely been seeing a significant increase in the number of people downsizing, which, by the way, leads to more higher value properties coming onto the market, which leads to, yes, the appearance of asking prices increasing. It doesn't mean that the prices of all houses are increasing. It means that the average asking prices are increasing because there are more expensive properties coming to the market that people are trying to sell at a higher value. So what's happened today? For a few weeks now, I've been hearing from mortgage brokers about how it's becoming a nightmare with more and more down valuations happening because agents are agreeing deals at prices that lenders won't support. Okay, that tells you something about what the market's expecting. If lenders are down valuing, they want to lend, don't they? Lenders want to lend, and they want to lend as much as they can within bounds of their lending criteria. But if they're down valuing, it's causing problems. It's causing extra work with brokers. And on top of all the down valuing happening, because deals are being agreed at too high a value, the lenders withdrawing rates and publishing new rates and doing it at short notice creates a horrific amount of extra work for brokers. But the comment that really hit me today that I heard was people with a mortgage should only be buying now if they had an offer made last week. Because with the rate increases announced today, we've crossed the line into a new phase. And oh God, I've just seen how many of you there are watching this. Where'd you all come from? That was quick. I'm going to just bring Alex in at the moment, just so he's ready to respond to what I go on to next. Good evening, Alex.
Evening, Charlie.
Welcome to another live stream. For those of you who are new here, Alex Gramwater is a very old friend of mine from school, from when we were like our age, we were single-digit ages. So we've been friends for over 40 years. And he is a weirdly gifted, talented statistician, even though it's only a hobby for him.
Yep.
He is a fellow seeker of the truth, and the truth lies in the data. Alex has been helping me and passing observations and bringing his his view on this fascinating topic, which is the housing market and the economy for a while. But I want to just bring up the two stories. So one of them has just come out in the last 20 minutes. But first of all, this story that came out on the Telegraph today, which is interesting because it's Capital Economics, which are fairly well regarded economist outfit, who have basically worsened their forecast for house prices. It's still pretty modest, but the fact that they are revising their forecasts down is significant. And the headline there, house prices will not recover until 2028, I think is quite interesting. We'll discuss that with Alex in a minute. But this is the first. So I reported this on Twitter a few hours ago. It's just come out on Reuters. Major UK lender Halifax pushes up mortgage rates. Wait, is this on the screen?
Yeah, it is.
And Britain's largest mortgage provider, Halifax, will ramp up interest rates for new home loans on Wednesday. So that's tomorrow, which, by the way, coincides with their monthly house price forecast coming out at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. And it's the latest major lender to do so in response to soaring funding costs. Unexpectedly strong inflation last month sparked a big jump in market interest rates as investors scrambled to price in more increases in borrowing costs from the Bank of England in coming months. The decision by Halifax comes after rivals like Nationwide announced hefty increases to mortgage rates. The moves had echoes of more severe temporary shutdown of the mortgage market in late September and early October last year, sparked by the Truss debacle. And this is where we get to some numbers here. According to Halifax's latest product guide for brokers, the rate on a 2-year deal with a 60% loan to value will rise to 5.36% tomorrow from 4.54%, which is a 0.8%. So it's not far off a 1% increase in the Halifax's lending rate. And Halifax spokesman confirmed it was raising rates. And my very good friend, mortgage broking partner, so one of my trusted brokers, Lewis Shaw, I didn't even know was quoted in this article. The latest increase by the biggest mortgage lender in the UK will spook buyers and sellers alike, not to mention those due to remortgage in the next few months. So let me just stop showing that and talk to Alex. So what does all of this mean? And I'm just going to make my statement, Alex, and then we can discuss it, which is this. I am, until further notice, suspending my general message, which is buy now but don't overpay, and I'm revising it as follows. Remembering that, of course, every single individual person's situation is different, depends on the property, on your situation, on your finances and everything else. But my general message is this. If you are a cash buyer and you need a home and you found one that you like, you can buy it without much risk, and you should continue to buy it. Try not to overpay. Obviously, there's no point in overpaying. But if it's a price that works for you and it's your maximum comfortable price and it secures you a home you want to live in, crack on and buy it, right? Nothing changes for cash buyers. If you are a person with a high deposit and need a small loan to value mortgage, and those mortgage repayments are well within your affordability for the medium term, then continue, right? You don't need to worry about what I'm saying this evening. It might change your mind on what's happening with house prices, but my suggestions of what I would do if I was in that situation doesn't change much either. However, if you are someone looking to buy or upsize with a large loan to value mortgage, and I'm saying anything over 65, 70% loan to value. So if you've got less than 35 or 30% deposit, then I'm addressing this remark to you guys. You need to be very, very sure that this is a long-term move for you, and that if you end up in negative equity, it won't disrupt your potential life plans later. and that you are going to be comfortably able to afford the mortgage payments for the foreseeable future. Because I now think we are entering, and again, it's very difficult to back this up because there's no transparent or no visibility of what's happened at Coalface today. But I've got some data. There is lots of data out there. I've got people I talk to. I've got my finger on the pulse, and this is what I do. And there is, amongst some professionals, now, it's really important to say this, right? The really professional and intelligent agents and mortgage brokers are going to be fine because they know how to not overprice houses. They know how to get deals done, and they will earn fees, and they will be good. In fact, in some ways, they will come out of this better than mediocre and poor agents and brokers. All right. So I am not worried for the quality professionals in the moving industry. I'm not worried for those guys, right? But for people who are mediocre or towards the poorer end of the scale, who have to rely on guff and deception to get deals through, and who found it easy to get deals in the last couple of years, for those people, life is about to get even harder. It already is hard now, has been getting much harder in the last few weeks. But what's happened now, it's not going to happen overnight, right? But there was a bit of a shock felt when those inflation figures weren't as low as expected, as when core inflation went up, when people realized, hang on a second, they're now pricing in 5.5% base of Bank of England base rates are now being priced in. That's made everyone go, ooh, and that's a couple of weeks ago. And for Halifax to do what it's done today, and for these house price revisions, the cold, harsh, brutal reality of what Alex and I have been trying to tell people for at least 6 months now, if not 9, is starting to take hold, as it was certainly going to, and will continue to. And so what I'm saying is this: the risks of negative equity are spiking now. Okay. Most of the time, when the property market is in normal times or going up, the risks of negative equity are very, very low for most people. So I've never talked about it before. Okay. And in the long run, yes, these phases come and go, and people say buy because in the long run it's great. But if you need to move in the near future, or if your employment is not that secure in the near future, then right now is arguably the very much the highest risk time for anyone to be buying with large loan-to-value borrowing at high interest rates. So let me now pass this over to Alex, because Alex, I'd like you to repeat what you said to me when we spoke earlier, which is what happens when Bank of England base rates, if Bank of England base rates, as they are now expected to do by the markets, reach 5.5% at the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is, as you said, this is not pretty. If you go back to, let's take a standard mortgage of, say, £250,000. Let's say first-time buyer, £250,000 mortgage. A couple of years ago, you might have expected to have a 2.5% fix on that for a few years. What we've just seen with the previous rate, only yesterday, that would have increased to 4.54%. Now, that would have meant that you were paying an additional £3,250 a year for your £250,000 of borrowing. With this new 0.8%, people are going to say, well, it's only 0.8%. That, for a first-time buyer on the same amount, is an additional £1,450 a year, on top of the additional £3,250. So between 21 and now, you're paying an extra £4,700 a year in mortgage payments for your £250,000 mortgage.
Out of your taxed income.
Out of your taxed income. Now, obviously, that's substantially more than 10%, even of two people on an average wage over the course. Sorry, that's not true. That's a lie. It's about an additional X% per year. We need to work it through.
Well, okay. Your point is clear, right? This is a significant increase, and it kind of crosses a Rubicon.
Yes.
This is
no, it is 10%. It is absolutely. I was right the first time. It's 10%. But interest rates are not immediately going to stop going up, the Bank of England rates. Now, we've had lots of people, and you know, as you said at the beginning, both of us are looking for the truth. But we don't know what is going to happen in the future. We're not sure. We've had people on who've suggested that interest rates could get as high as 8%. Now, I can't see that happening for a very simple reason. In fact, I can't see them getting certainly above 6%, but not much above 5%. And the reason for that is because if they do everything pretty much in this country, from pensions through to the government servicing debt, through to our ability to invest in the National Health Service, breaks.
And businesses with borrowings.
Well, I mean, you've got to understand that with these increased mortgage payments, people are going to be putting less money into local businesses. And local businesses also have loans that they have to refinance. We always think about, people and their mortgages, but all of these small, medium enterprises, and indeed the big ones, have to refinance. And if they're getting less revenue and paying more to service their debt, what are they going to do? They're going to cut costs. They're going to lay people off.
Yeah.
And I always said, if you remember, way back in September, August, September, when we first talked about this, 3.5% is a tolerable Bank of England rate. So imagining that mortgages might get to sort of 4.5%, maybe 5%, that was tolerable. 4.5% Bank of England rate, which is likely to result in 5.5% to 6% mortgages, which is obviously what we're now seeing, because the rates you quoted there were for a reasonably large deposit.
60%, that was a 40% deposit, exactly. So yeah, that's low.
That's low. If you had less deposit, or if you're on a variable rate, they are probably now approaching 7.5% to 8% as a variable, and certainly over 6% or for people who only have a 5, 10, or 15% deposit. And at that point, companies are going to start laying people off because they can't service their debt. They're not getting the revenue because people aren't spending the money with the businesses because they're using it to service their mortgage.
Yeah.
And the whole house of cards, line of dominoes, however you want to look at it, it all begins to fall.
Now, can I just for the benefit of people, especially people who are new watching this, can you simplify for us why you have such a high level of certainty that the maths says with Bank of England base rates at 5.5%, everything breaks? What's the logic that allows you to say that?
Okay, so if we look at our current budget deficit and we look at the servicing costs, now what the government, I mean, there are a lot of complex gears and levers here, but one of the things is that we, the public, are on the hook for any money the government has to pay out in terms of its quantitative easing policies and now the quantitative tightening. So as these yields go up, the only option that they really have is to either tax us more in order to service the debt because they don't have any, or print more. But if they do that, they're going to put up inflation.
Yeah.
And at that point, we then have to raise interest rates even more, at which point the country breaks further. There's no money left for investment. It's why, frighteningly, the government are now looking at raiding, I'm using that word too strongly, but are looking at using pension funds in order to invest in infrastructure projects in the economy. So at the moment, your pension funds, whether they're private or state, I'm not just talking about state, this includes all of the big, large private pensions.
Yeah.
They are invested in stock markets and bonds and a whole range of different things, diversified, hopefully, and that ensures that you have a future income. But what the government would like to do is take some of that money and use it to invest in infrastructure projects in the UK, which on the face of it would be wonderful if the government actually knew how to run a project to time and budget and could therefore create a return on your pension and increase the pot so that you still had a secure future. Because it's the only way they can get their hands on money which isn't inflationary.
It's worth pointing out, isn't it, that if the UK government was a business, it would have been wound up by now, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah, it makes me laugh to hear that the Tories are talking about a 2% tax cut before the election.
2 pence tax.
Sorry, that's like 2 pence. Yeah, £2. But because they already haven't got enough money. But yeah, so the borrowing costs go up. Borrowing costs for businesses go up.
Revenues go down.
Revenues goes down. Yeah, businesses close. The point is, it is a fairly mathematical certainty, unless there is some secret store of spare cash people have got, where they can keep on spending despite these rising mortgage rates, which there isn't exactly.
I mean, the reality is we know how much cash people have in terms of ISAs, pension funds. It's all published on the Bank of England site. We know what they have in savings accounts, whether those are long-term savings, short-term savings, non-interest-bearing savings, cash accounts. We know all of that. I've got all of those numbers, and you crunch them together. And the reality is, at the moment, that transaction volumes for mortgages are down about 28%, not on 21 and 22, but on the average of 15 to 19. So let's not talk about weird and unusual.
Hey, could you repeat that?
The transaction volumes for mortgages, for house purchases, are down 28.2% for the first 4 months of the year in comparison with the average for 2015 to 2019.
Okay, so stripping out the pandemic period. Okay, so that, all right, that is a massive, so 28% down on the pre-COVID average, and mortgage approvals we know are a leading indicator of what's happening.
They are at the same level now and actually going lower than they were in 2009. At the height of the crash.
Okay, so, right. There's been a lot of coverage in the press the last few days about 35% mortgages. And I was not surprised, I suppose, but it was significant to see that going from a 25-year mortgage to a 35-year mortgage is something like it's an extra £80,000 of interest on the average mortgage.
Correct.
80 grand just gone for buying a property of the same value, just because of the extra 10 years of interest. And it worries me now that there's been an uptick in people taking those up at this point. And I really worry for the people who have.
Well, it's increased from 2% of people taking those mortgages out only a few years ago
to 20%.
To 20% of people now. Now, anyone who takes out a mortgage for 35 years who is 30 or above is potentially hampering their future retirement.
This is such an important point, because I'm going to make a confession now. I was offered finance when I was 26 years old to buy a very fast car that I couldn't afford.
But you do like fast cars.
Hang on a second. The point is that the prospect of ownership for me, as a dyed-in-the-wool petrol head, over that car at the age of 26 years old was just, I didn't care. I didn't care what it cost. I had just been given a way forward to purchase this. For any petrol heads watching this, it was an Audi RS6. It was 2003. And I honestly, for me to be able to get into a car like that at that age, I didn't care. I had no money left. It's like when I'd done the payments of that and then the petrol, which is horrific, buying that car put me into such stupid amounts of debt.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment, I was totally seduced by, it doesn't matter. I can own that car.
Yep.
And it's like that extra drink you know you shouldn't have at the end of the night, but you have anyway. That extra ice cream or chocolate, that extra, just one more. You know, that facet of human nature that makes you go, we've been looking for so long for a home, and we found one, and we've got the mortgage offer. Why don't we just buy it? Because then we could live in that home. But it's just so important. I mean, I get it. There are people who've been desperately trying to buy a home for years, and who might just now, be in a position to finally do it. And they're being offered the finance to do it. And they've got an offer accepted. And I just, to me, right now, feels like the beginning of the peak risk of negative equity.
Correct. Prices are still, although they've come down roughly 4% in nominal terms, in real terms about 10%, they are still high, very high.
Yeah.
And as you say, with these levels, if people are fixing at these rates, with the uncertainty that I believe is ahead in the job market, and just with the falls that I think are inevitable, you've got a number of people, just to answer a few questions on the right. Japan did very briefly, to try and stimulate the economy, have extremely long mortgages. In fact, they invented the 100-year mortgage. However, they got rid of those a long time ago because they realized how detrimental they were. Generational mortgages, which got passed on through 3 or 4 generations. Japan is a very interesting case, but it's no longer true to say that they certainly haven't sold those products for a long time. The other thing to note is, much as I am very against longer term mortgages of 35 years, I do understand the affordability. And one of your guests, or sorry, one of your viewers has said, well, it's the only way to afford it. I do get that, except it's not the only way. A house price fall, it would be a much better way to be able to afford it if you believe that that's going to happen. But the thing to note is, a 30-year mortgage is a better bang for buck than a 35, and a 35 is a better bang for buck than a 40. As you continue to increase the longevity of the mortgage, the vast amount of additional interest you pay is not offset as well by a lower mortgage payment monthly. So you need to look at the figures very, very carefully if you're thinking about taking out a long-term mortgage. If somebody says to you, oh, take the 40-year, you only have to pay this much per month.
Look at the total amount repaid.
But also look at the monthly payment, because it won't be that much less than the 35-year.
Yeah.
The biggest drop is between 25 and 35. After that, the payback is much smaller as a percentage term.
Don't be like I was when they handed me the finance papers for the RS6. I said, where do I sign? Where do I sign? Don't do that. Don't be me. I'd also, because we've smashed our record of concurrent viewers. We're at over 900 right now. I would like, so that means we've definitely got some new viewers on tonight. I would like a quick recap, and I'll do it and chime in, follow on, whatever, about why we have been calling the house price falls, why it's taking so long, and why we're so confident they are going to fall. So I'm going to start off by saying that before Alex and I started discussing house prices back in February 2022, and there's a video on this channel. In fact, I think it's, if you go to the channel page, it's the welcome video. And when I think at that point I had 50 subscribers, and I did a video saying, I think I've just felt the top of the market pass. I think I've just felt the froth come off the top. And this is February 2022. And I just started to see some houses that should have been going like hotcakes sitting around for a few months. And I just felt something turning. It was when they first started talking about, it was the start of the war. It was also when they started talking about cost of living going up and that kind of stuff. And I just felt, it was just like, oh, we've just peaked at the coalface. I sensed it. I saw it in our software. I saw it in the agents I was talking to. But there was nothing going to come out publicly to verify it for a while. And then in May, so just over a year ago, was when I actually called it and said, I am now sure there are going to be house price falls. I actually used the word collapse, I think, on the Best Agent channel. And this was quite simply because I could see what was happening to interest rates. Inflation had just started going up, but the general public wasn't paying attention to it. At that point, we'd had such low inflation for such a long time that when it went to the news, people went, in what? In what? Can I have another beer, please? You know, it was just, there was very, very little public awareness of what it meant when inflation spiked. And I could see it coming. I could see it happening. And I started doing videos last summer to say, this is coming. And don't be put off by year-on-year house prices going up when month-on-month they're coming down. And the data has now come out to support that I was right. You know, August was the first time one of the indices saw house prices coming down. With the time delay, that reflected the May, which I think was the peak in actual agreed deals being done. And it's just started. And if you go and look back over previous house price downturns, they typically take a total of 3 years peak to trough, right? And the first year is just the gentle falls, which is what we've just had a year of, although we won't, again, there's a reporting delay. But what it feels like to me now is at the coalface now, where we've now had it confirmed that we've had 4 months of 30% lower transactions and 5 months of falling prices with the land registry, with the time lag that factors in, which means at the coalface, agents know what's happening and what's coming. They can feel it. And I had some people commenting today that they've started to get some angry reactions from agents, which is very unfortunate to hear that. And it's obviously that would only happen if there are agents who are very, very worried about their livelihoods and their ability to make a living. But we have yet to see the full effects of last year's interest rate increases. There are 700,000 people yet that are going to come to the end of their fixed rate mortgage this year. We know that as many as possible will just find a way to meet their mortgage payment, or they'll remortgage, or people will hold to their house, but first and foremost above anything else. So transactions are going to drop further because people who might have been wanting to move now are just worried about the uncertainty of the economy, the uncertainty of a looming election, and all of this bad financial news with interest rates going up, mortgage rates going up. Moving house is one of the most uncertain things you can do anyway. Throw in uncertainty in the economy and the finances, and people are like, oh, no, that's just too scary. That's just too scary. Let's just stay put. It's people are wanting to hunker down, and I get that. Which means we start to lose liquidity. And when you lose liquidity, whichever direction prices are heading, it accelerates it. Would you agree with that, Alex?
Yes.
So we are losing liquidity in transactions. Prices, the downward movement in prices, the most recent month for the land registry was 1.2% down month on month. That was for March they were reporting. So at the coalface, 3 months later, or 6 months later, depending on how much time lag you want to factor into that, they are going to be accelerating now. And there's some evidence here, which is that the number of down valuations happening that mortgage brokers are reporting, like so many down valuations, it's actually pissing them right off because they have to read all the paperwork every time.
And on the flip side of that, if you look at the Bank of England bank stats tables, you can see that consumer credit is continually increasing on credit cards, whereas people who have the money are paying off their mortgage debt, so that actually the amount of outstanding mortgage loans has reduced, which is great for people in their 50s and 60s who have paid off their mortgage with their other investments. But for people who are just looking, you've got a viewer here who's 34 years old and is thinking about taking a 40-year mortgage. And as another one of your viewers said, but how many mortgages are actually ever paid to term? Well, it's a good point. It's unlikely that you have that single mortgage throughout your entire life. However, at the same time, if you start off with a 40-year mortgage, there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to take out a shorter term mortgage in the future. It all depends on what happens in your life.
And also, I think that comment makes the assumption that the economy is going to be the same as it has been. People's earnings are going up, and the economy is growing and that kind of stuff, which, when that's happening and when there is wage growth, absolutely, that does happen. People do pay off their mortgages early. But we're in a period, another reason for prices being almost certain to fall quite a long way further is that we are now well into a period of real wage shrinkage. And as Alex has done the numbers over the last 27 years, I think, isn't it, Alex? There's a very strong correlation, a stronger correlation between wage growth or shrinkage and house prices than any other correlation with interest rates.
Correct.
Mortgage approvals. So, God, 966 people out there. It'd be great if we got over 1,000. So what are we saying? Okay, what about this question, Alex? When people go, well, hang on a second. Okay, 40-year mortgage is bad, but paying rent for 40 years
also bad. Yeah, I know. It's a rock and a hard place. It's the conversations that we had to start all this off when we first did this, the death in poverty one.
Can you get a bit closer to your microphone, Alex? You're a bit quiet. Sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, thanks.
It's the conversations that we had previously. We are at a step change in society because we're going through a technology revolution, in inverted commas, which we've been going through for the last 40 odd years and will do, I believe, until 2100. We are going to change the way society works, and part of that is likely to be less home ownership.
Well,
It's just not going to.
they've also announced universal basic income trials this week, haven't they?
Well, no, I mean, come on. I mean, I put that up as a joke on Twitter because they're at the moment they're planning on giving £1,600 a month to 30 people for 2 years to see how it would impact them. There have been plenty of UBI trials in the past around the world, most notably a long one in Alaska. However, £1,600 a month is for all of the adults in this country £1 trillion a year. So over 40%, sorry, 35%, 40% of our entire GDP. So I don't think that's going to be happening anytime soon.
No, I agree, but they're starting to put it in our, they're just it's becoming a thing, isn't it? It's being talked about, it's being trialed, it's starting to put it into people's psyche that it's
correct.
Yeah.
In the same way as CBDCs have been, just conversations, and oh yeah, I mean they're coming. There's no two ways about it. Hopefully, 15-minute cities aren't. But what we're saying is that the whole way that we live our lives, and to some degree, it will be a good thing if people do not turn themselves into, as some of your viewers are saying, debt slaves, just so that they can own a property. If a property, if you go back to the 50s, when all the social housing was built, more than a third of the population lived at some point in their lives in social housing. There was no stigma attached to it. That was just the reality. Now, what Thatcher did, whatever you may think of it, and in turning us into a nation of home owners, home ownership was not a common thing before the Second World War. It was the rich and the rich gentry. But as we moved then into the welfare state, a lot of people in social housing, and then we reached a peak, I think, of 80% of households were owner-occupier. And we're now down to 62%, I believe. So you can see it's already falling away. Part of that was because of the financial crash in 2008. A lot of people, didn't bounce back in a way that they could own a property because prices had risen so much from 95 really through until 2007, 2008. But that we're going to see that again with this crash. We're going to see, I believe, banks and big institutions become private landlords, but we will also see rents at a more reasonable rate, just like the Germans. The Germans have a large portion of their society are renters, and their renters have many more rights than we do, and they also have a very reasonable rental rate.
When you take a step back and look at the whole housing market, so that owner-occupiers, landlords, buy-to-let landlords, institutional landlords, renters, the Renters Reform Bill, the changes in EPCs, actually you're looking at, and then you layer over the top of that interest rates going up high, the highest they've been for a very long time, and going higher, inflation high, potential economic, to me it's pretty certain economic downturn. We're not just going through a wrinkle, are we? We're not just going through a bit of a bump in the road. By the way, over 1,000 people, over 1,000 live viewers. Thank you very much, everyone, and welcome to all new viewers. That's a lot of you.
Viewers, thank you.
A lot of people. It's an arbitrary
no,
number,
this is not a bump in the road, no, Charlie. You're absolutely right.
We are not going through a bump in the road. This is absolutely not any form of blip. There are so many fundamental things changing that it makes it very, very difficult to see through as to what happens when we come out of this. So when I say come out of this, we are going through, one of the words I actually used to characterize it was a recalibration, a house price recalibration, which I still think is not a bad word to describe it. It will take 3 years, because I actually think that the total time elapsed between someone having that first thought, maybe we should buy or maybe we should move house, and actually moving in can be up to 2 years. And when I do a video, which I want to do soon, talking about really helping people understand the difference in the house price indices. So the asking prices, which are referring to transactions that will complete at about a year from the time a property comes on the market, right? So asking prices are an indication of what prices might be a year from now if they get their asking prices. The mortgage indices is a relatively close approximation to what prices are being agreed today for transactions being funded with mortgages, not cash transactions. And then land registry is what happened a while ago. So it's horrible. You've got this massively advanced index of asking prices that's fucking meaningless. You've got the nationwide and Halifax, which is relatively useful because it's one of the most timely ones, but it's also a very small sample of only mortgage-based stuff.
Yeah.
And then you've got the land registry, which is the only one where they actually share all the granular data down to each transaction level, so you can check it. So it is.
So you've got to wait a year.
You've got to wait a year. So I was talking to a national newspaper journalist today about this, and they said, the thing that people forget about property is, unlike every other thing in the world that you can trade legally, everything else in the world you can trade, you can get instant real-time pricing.
Yes. Yeah. Housing is the only thing where you just have to guess.
And even a year later, we still haven't got the full mark. It's still like, well, they're still catching up, and there's still a bit of stuff that hasn't come through yet. There is almost no accuracy on even the land registry stuff. There's no total accuracy for, I think.
Well, you saw recently, I mean, which may surprise some of your audience, we had to correct an estate agent who was published in the Negotiator and the Property Industry Eye. Because she had put out a press release saying that transaction volumes, was it transaction volumes? Yes, transaction volumes had dropped by 50%.
Yeah,
58%.
Yeah,
58%.
And I said, didn't I, straight away? I was like, nah, that's not right.
No, and I did the research on it. Now, what's interesting, what really tells you is she was looking at land registry data. And what she hadn't realized is that when they released their March data, it doesn't contain all of the March data. It only contains about 10% of the March data. But here's the interesting bit. When she did that research, which would have been only a month ago, she said that the land registry was showing 181,000 transactions for Q1 2022, over a year ago.
Right.
Since she did that, that number has gone up from 181,000 to 205,000. So they are still
another 10% a year, more than a year later. They're still having transactions. Okay, so guys, just so everyone understands what that is, okay, the land registry is the final word on what's actually happening to actual house prices, and they're taking more than a year to finish registering those transactions. More than a year. Did you hear what Alex just said? That's 25,000 transactions that they still hadn't done a year later. So I also wanted to just, again, with how so many people watching and so many new followers, I wanted to just remind people, what the hell do I know, right? I've had a fascinating 20-something year career of providing technology, CRM systems, databases to estate agents, large and small. And I've had clients all around the country at the very high. One of my clients sold the most expensive properties in the UK. I was a client for 10 years, fascinating. And I've had clients selling some of the cheapest property in the UK, in the Northwest, in Scotland, and places. So, and I've seen, and I personally designed their systems that track their buyers through the process all the way through to completion. And they could track the conversion rate of buyers registering, to them booking viewings, to then making offers, to then having deals accepted, to then deal. And I just providing. I've actually built 3 of those systems from scratch over the last 20 years. No one else has done that. So, arguably, I really know what I'm talking about here. It gave me a broad insight to the dynamics and inner workings at a sort of bird's eye level, but also at a granular buyer by buyer, offer by offer level, because I was helping design reports that would tell estate agents exactly what their productivity and their conversion ratios were. You know, we could work out stuff like, what is their cost per viewing? You know, we could work. It was fascinating, and what I was seeing was happening in real time at the coalface. And it was a cloud-based system. So we collated all the data across all these agencies around the country. And at the time, I didn't even realize the value of the data that I had. Stupidly.
Yeah.
And it's what I want to bring back. So I'm actually just going to just quickly show people, because I've finally got that percentages working. You haven't seen this, Alex, but here's something that I think people would like to see. Is that on the screen? No,
yeah,
here it is. So let's just get that. So this is Best Agent, my website, my property website, Best Agents. This is England. I've got sales and lettings here, and I was talking to journalists about this, because there's a journalist hopefully doing a story on this soon. Let me just get rid of that caption. Sorry, chat. Hide the chat. This is actually the only index, and this is a work in progress, experimental. It's in beta, but it's the only index that is a snapshot of the asking price situation right now, broken down in the country. We've only got England and Wales at the moment, not yet Scotland and Northern Ireland. But that is today the total number of homes showing for sale, and next line down, total number of homes showing as sale agreed, with the median and average prices for both of those. And the reason that they're all at naught is because they got reset today. To me, there's no weighting, there's no, as in weighted averages, there's no there's no seasonal adjustment. This is everything. It's all homes. We strip out garages, land, that kind of stuff. And the biggest thing to notice there is the difference between the asking prices of unsold stuff, for sale stuff, and the published asking prices of the stuff marked as sold. Okay. And so £285,000 is the median published asking price of properties showing as sold. And yet the average asking price is £494,000, which is ridiculously skewed by a number of high-end properties that sit there for literally years not selling. And we've also got below that letting stuff. And you'll see here the lettings prices are starting to come down. Now, my level of confidence in this is still modest, right? There's a lot of data, it's moving a lot of the time, but I think the prices have been going up and up and up. They're just starting to come down now. The median price of let agreed stuff was at £1,095 about a month ago. So that's down about 4% in a month, if this data is to be relied upon, that's why it's still in beta. I'm not claiming it's but you know, it's the only total average that we got. So yeah, there's a little plug for my stuff anyway. Because I'm trying to use the data that I've got with agents and the data for all the stuff out there to bring transparency without the guff, to show you what's actually happening wherever we can, so that you can make a better decision. And let's just come back to this. We've been going now for getting on for an hour. So I want to bring it back round to, okay, what are we saying? What does it mean? Let's recap the point. My point is this. Up until today, I have been saying, if you're in a position where you need a home and you can afford a home, buy now, just don't overpay. And be confident that you don't need to move anywhere for a while if you have a high loan-to-value mortgage. Today, with just today's announcement is at Halifax and a few other things that have happened today, I feel like we're entering a very, very highly dangerous phase of the downturn. We are going to be seeing the steepest price falls in the next 12 months of this 3-year price drop, which, by the way, guys, I have called for a while now. My estimate is 35% peak to trough over 3 years. We've just finished year one of the falls, roughly 10%. We're about to enter the next 12-month period, which is between now and this time in 2024. We won't see that reported by the Land Registry for some months after that, so we won't know whether I was right or not for a long time yet. But I think we're going to be seeing the steepest drops in the next 12 months. And the problem is that not only are agents and many mortgage brokers in denial about what's happening to house prices, but even the lenders don't really want to come to terms with it. You know, I don't know what you think about this, Alex. I think if lenders did their truth seeking in the way that we've done it to see what's really going to happen here. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that they are downvaluing more now, I think.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, they wouldn't have sold a whole bunch of mortgages that they have sold over the last 9 to 12 months.
Right, exactly.
It's that simple. I mean, that whole idea of 100% mortgages coming back, I mean, that was insanity. I don't know if they ever even did it, but whether it was just a press gimmick. Yeah. They certainly made the lending criteria very difficult. But no, I mean, we heard in a conversation recently that what were they looking at? they were looking at Rightmove prices as a memo that had been sent round.
Fuck, can you believe that? That was the RACS chap, Andrew Simmons, saying that he had a client who was a NatWest executive who'd received a head office memo that because Rightmove said average asking prices were going up, their policy was that they're expecting house prices to go up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that, insane,
unbelievable. So, yeah, it's worrying. All of the people with a vested interest in transactions continuing appear to be carrying on, just walking into the flames.
And bear in mind, we have not seen the last of the banking crisis, in inverted commas, in America. I know it's gone all quiet, and everyone's gone, well, that's okay, it's all over now. Signature and SVB, that's finished now. It's not finished. That is going to pick back up again. And the way you can tell it's not finished is when a bank has lost 80% of its value in the past 6 months, and then in a day increases in 15% of value, then drops 12%, then increases 30%, then drops 20% in the space of a few weeks, and returns back to pretty much where it was, having lost 80% of its value. That is not normal for a bank. Banks do not go up and down like that in the stock market. That sort of volatility is associated with biotechs, not banks.
I just want to answer Emma Anderson's question. Should you still bother to view? Absolutely. Keep viewing. And here's my reason why. Some sellers out there will be desperate. And if you keep viewing when everyone else stops viewing, which lots of people will do, you may still yet find a property that, even despite all of the circumstances we've just discussed, you look at it and go, I want to live in that home. I love it. And they're desperate to sell it. And they're doing it at a price that I think already reflects how far they're going to fall. I want to buy it. Right. So, yeah, keep viewing. But just, and if you're viewing, you will see what is happening at the coalface in the area that you want to live. At the coalface, you'll see what's selling, what's not, what's coming back on the market, what's not, and what they're selling for. And if you are still a proceedable buyer, the agents will start rolling out the red carpet for you. So yeah, I would continue viewing, because only by doing that will you be in the right place at the right time. Should your dream home come along with a desperate seller who can't get anyone to view it because house prices are in free fall, and they say, look, just make me an offer. You make them an offer, they go, done. And you think, at that price, that's still a bargain. That still happens. That still happens. So yes, keep viewing, guys. Right. The name of the website, by the way, is bestagent.co.uk. Sorry. Or bestagent.news is that page. I'll put it. Literally just bestagent.news, and then click on England. I want to wrap this up before we hit the 1 hour mark. Alex, do you want anything to wrap up with?
No, I'm good.
We're going to be here. You and I are here tomorrow night with Anthony Codling.
I'm referee.
Yeah.
Let's get ready to rumble.
I had a good chat with him today preparing for tomorrow's evening. So guys, it's me versus an economist who has a different view on how house prices are going to do tomorrow evening, which I'm looking forward to very much. Thank you all so much for coming and making this a record-breaking live stream. Who says bad news doesn't sell? Oh dear. And I'm just going to wrap it up. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a great night. See you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. If you want to come along and witness me versus an economist who doesn't think house prices are going to fall as far as I do. Have a great night, guys. Thank you very much. See you on the next one. Come back tomorrow night. We've got questions and we'll take your questions. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.